Good day, Flyer fans. I said good day. It is absolutely great to have you. This is the Talking Out Loud pregame show, normally live from Tim's, but today live from the Talking Out Loud studios right here in frigid Chicago, Illinois. Wherever you're joining us today, if you're live on StreamYard watching video, if you're watching us from Tim's, first time we're doing this, getting the video stream up on Tim's, if you're on iHeartRadio, if you're on YouTube, if you're on the old-fashioned radio dial in the Dayton market, I thank you. It is absolutely great to have you for today's pregame show for Dayton. George Mason tipping off at 7 o'clock Eastern from UD Arena, of course, on the great banks of the Miami River. On the banks of the great Miami River. Yeah, sorry. Got a packed show tonight, packed hour before we get to tip-off. 6:20 after the first commercial break. I'm going to be bringing on my buddy Petey Buckets. Think of him as like the me, but for George Mason. And he might be a little bit more analytical than I am. So I love having conversations with Petey. He's a numbers guy, and he'll kind of break down the woeful season that the George Mason Patriots are having, but he's a fan nonetheless. So he'll give you the things that you need to know about the Patriots and what he thinks about the matchup tonight, and try to be as objective as he can. Finishing up the show tonight, last part of the hour, I'm going to have Ryan Mikesell joining me to talk some Dayton hoops. That's what he loves doing the most, and he has the best perspective on the Dayton Flyers team, obviously, because he's Chip Mikesell, all right? Obviously, he's going to have the best perspective on the team. So wherever you're joining us tonight, I thank you for doing it. Like I said, packed hour, getting us to the 7 p.m. tip-off with George Mason. So for the first few minutes, you got me, and I figured I would start tonight with a story to put some context around this program in the A-10. Now, I know that we played George Mason. The Dayton Flyers. I'm a 2012 grad, so I'm allowed to say we. All right, when we win, I say we. So I think I'm allowed to say we now. I'm allowed to do that. Don't give me crap about it. Anyways, we played George Mason about a month ago, and I was on with the guys at the By George Network, who cover the team pretty extensively. They're one of the better blogs in the A-10, and frankly, they gave me a tone that was I don't want to say somewhat negative, but they had kind of given up hope that this regime at George Mason was going to reach success. And I think that, to be honest, they have plenty of legs to stand on here. George Mason now is in their 6th year under Dave Paulson, and they have, they've only gotten to 20 wins in the time that they have been under Dave Paulson. So 6 seasons. His best record is 20-14, and they have never finished above 5th in the conference. They've never even made it to the A-10 semis in the A-10 tournament on Saturday. So I wanted to start the podcast tonight with that pretext to tell you a story. And this is more of a cautionary tale of one-year success in college basketball. You heard a million times since the 2020 season was over that Dayton was losing their momentum this year if they could not build on what they accomplished last year. And the circumstances are entirely unique. I know that, but I wanted to start the show tonight with this cautionary tale. So everybody knows that in 2006, George Mason went to the Final Four. It's one of the most legendary calls of all time in the NCAA tournament. Denham Brown for Connecticut in the Elite Eight. He misses a shot in OT at the buzzer. It clangs off, and Vern Lundquist goes, "By George, they've done it." The George Mason players stand up on the table. They're repping their shirts. It is an iconic moment in the NCAA tournament that 11-seeded George Mason could find themselves in the Final Four, where, of course, they ended up losing that next round. So after that season under Jim Larrañaga, the Patriots in the Colonial League at that time, they missed the tournament. Then they went back to the tournament in 2008 only because they won their conference tournament. Since that time in 2008, the Patriots have only gone to the tournament once in Jim Larrañaga's last year, and it was the only year that they were able to get that at-large bid since their Final Four run. George Mason would make the jump to the Atlantic 10 2 years later after their final NCAA tournament appearance. And as I mentioned, since they have joined the A10, their record is 52-82 in conference play. They have never finished with a record better than 11-7. They have one season over 500 in the A10. And they are on the verge of letting their coach, Dave Paulson, go. And there has certainly been a lot of rumblings about that. So when I said that this is a cautionary tale of one-year success, George Mason really is the blueprint of what can happen in college basketball when you see a tremendous amount of success and then you do not build on that. And the only point I'm getting to is that they never built on that success to become a perennial tournament team. Of course, there were some missteps along the way when they hired Paul Hewitt, who later became the coach at Wright State. And he never got it going in a consistent way for George Mason. So that's why I wanted to start the cast tonight, because we've talked a lot about momentum. We've talked a lot about how you build to become a perennial tournament program. And George Mason is the poster child for a program that did not capitalize on that success. And now where they've found themselves is a sputtering A10 program that is usually towards the bottom of the barrel in the standings. And frankly, they've been irrelevant now for going on about a decade. And not that I ever think that Dayton would get to that level again. I certainly did not tell you that story because I think that that's where the program is headed. However, I just wanted to highlight to start the show how important it is in the landscape of college basketball to build momentum and build momentum consistently so that there's a story and a narrative around your team. Because if I'm going to put it under the lens of this season, let's say that Dayton was in the at-large conversation right now. The story behind them of, oh, they were just a 1 seed last year. They're a team or a program that gets to the tournament consistently. They're a winning program. Those narratives matter because we saw it last year. Even when Dayton is at the top of the mountain in college basketball, the majority of the college basketball media is not going to be tuning in to Dayton. And so the narrative around the team becomes just as important when you're trying to get back in the tournament and jockey for at-large bids versus Big Five programs. So that was how I wanted to start the cast. And I thought in my head that, let's put a story around the program. Let's put a story around George Mason. I love learning more and more about the programs in the A10 because I always say that their fan bases are just like us. They're simply wearing different colored shirts. And the fan that I'm going to bring on after the commercial break, PD Buckets, certainly exemplifies that approach. He's just like me and you. He simply wears a green colored shirt. So some things to watch for tonight before we get into having our guests later on down the show here. The number one thing I wanted people to watch for tonight, and my betting tendencies actually skewed this way because of this number, is that coming off a loss this season, Dayton is 4-0. Their point totals have been in the 70s except for one game out of those four. So the games coming off of a loss are Northern Kentucky, George Mason Patriots the first time around, the Davidson game that went to overtime, and St. Louis. And those three out of four of those games, the Flyers have scored over 70 points. And the point totals of Jalen Crutcher and Ibby Watson combined has increased in each of those games. So the Northern Kentucky game, they had 36 combined. The Mason game, they had 42 combined. Davidson, that one was skewed a little bit because of overtime. They had 53 in that game. And then against St. Louis, obviously Jalen Crutcher completely went off, but him and Ibby went for 55. So the Flyers have had a tendency to get the wheels greased and get back on track after a loss. And so with that said, their pedigree is to score around 65 per game. But I think, and I'm good, this is a prediction, okay? Don't take this as Bible. It's a prediction just based on trends that I'm seeing. The trend that we're seeing tonight is that the Flyers should come out a little bit hotter on the offensive end because it's not really possible for them to come out colder than they did last game. Ibby was 0 for 10, so you can't be any colder than that. But coming off a loss, it stands to reason that you're going to see a little bit more offense from the Flyers today. We'll see a little bit more production from Jalen and Ibby than we saw last game out. And that should lead to a Flyers win. You get back in your home arena after being in the Cooper Fieldhouse in Pittsburgh, and you have to think that there's going to be a a better feel for the rim, and shots are going to start to fall for the Flyers. So as the time of this recording, the line hasn't moved much today. Dayton's a 5.5-point favorite. They're minus 260 on the money line, which is not great value. However, with the things that I just said, 2 bets that I'm going to vouch for today, and I'll say them at the end of the show too, just to remind you in case. The Dayton point total was 68.5. I'm going over today, and there is good value if you can get a Dayton win plus going over on the points. That's plus 170. So for all you gamblers out there, Dayton money line plus the over is going to net you plus 170, a $17 win on a $10 bet. All right, so that's what I'm going with today. The trends tell me that's what it should be. Also, the George Mason point total is 63.5. I tend to think we're going to see a game in the 70s today. And I do think George Mason is going to score more than 63 points. So mark it both down. I think both teams are going to go over. I think the over is going to hit today just because I think we'll see a little bit of a faster pace and guys shooting a little bit more and less of the Flyers getting in to their half court where, of course, they love to live. Okay. Like I said, at the other end of the commercial break, we have PD Buckets coming on to preview the George Mason Patriots. But what do you need to know before I bring him on? Well, I'll let you know right now, listeners. And if you do want to get in touch with the show, you can go on to StreamYard. I put it on my Twitter where you can watch the show and you can comment live, or you can go to my Twitter at Sully My Good Name or at Talking Out Loud, either one. Give me a question. I'll read it off on the air. My Twitter is up right here in front of me. So if you do have a question for the show, go ahead and punch it in, and I'd be happy to read it off as long as you say nothing mean to me. Don't be mean, okay? Don't be mean. All right, we have questions coming in right now. So before I get to like your dual George Mason bio, one of the questions I just got was, where would you rank Ryan Mikesell on the all-time Flyer list? As far as Flyers glue guys go, he has to be in the top 3, okay? There's been a lot of good glue guys here in Dayton Flyers history. But as far as ranking him on the all-time list, no knock on Ryan. I'm going to see where he ranks himself on the all-time list, to be honest with you. But I don't know if I would go as far as to put him on an all-time list because that's not who he was and that's not who Ryan wanted to be for us. He was always a guy that did the dirty work, being where he needs to be, making the extra pass. Where would I rank him on the all-time list? I'm definitely going to put him in the top 50 players at UD all-time. Breaking the top 20, that'd be tough. So let's say somewhere between 20 and 30 of players all-time. Maybe a little bit of recency bias in there. As far as how much he was beloved by the fans, then he's a top 10 player. There's no doubt about it. They're telling me right now in my ear that I have to go to commercial break, and my friend PD Buckets joining me on the other side. Talking George Mason versus Dayton. Tip 7 o'clock coming up here. Come on back. I'm going to be talking George Mason with my buddy PD Buckets. It's all on the other side of the break. Thanks for joining us. It's the Talking Out Loud pregame show. I'm your man Sully. It's brought to you by Lee's Chicken, and you can only find it on ESPN 1410 Radio in Dayton.
Bank of America Cash Rewards credit card. Choosing to earn 3% cash back on online shopping and up to 5.25% as a preferred rewards member, which you put towards your most essential deck addition. A bird feeder. Apply for yours at bankofamerica.com/more rewarding. Copyright 2020 Bank of America Corporation.
Have you ever wanted to learn a new language like French, Spanish, or Russian, but thought it would be too difficult and time-consuming? Then go to Babbel.com and try it for free. Babbel works because it's built around real life. It teaches you everyday practical conversations that you will actually use. In 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. Babbel uses a modern conversation-based technique that makes language engaging, fun, and memorable. It starts by teaching you words and phrases. Then, sentences gradually get more complex. Soon, you're practicing short conversations about real-life topics. Babbel is created by language experts who use the spaced repetition method to help you learn quickly and remember what you learned. With Babbel, you can speak a new language. Babbel, language for life. Celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. Just go to Babbel.com and start learning a new language today. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
Tie ball game with the shot clock winding down now. Jones takes the ball to point off the high screen and roll. He puts up the shot at the buzzer, and it's
Timothy's Bar and Grill on Brown Street. Dayton Flyers basketball fans can't make it to the arena this season, but want to experience a safe electric college game day atmosphere? Timothy's Bar and Grill is the spot to support the Flyers all season long. Follow Timothy's Bar and Grill on Facebook and Twitter for select game day specials. Go Flyers!
How much money would you like to save just by doing something you're already doing? 15 or 25%? How about 40%? With Allstate, safe drivers can save 40% just by doing something they're already doing. Driving safe. That's right, 40% just by driving safe.
See just how much you can save when you bundle. In the Springfield and surrounding area, call me, Dave Mowdy, at 325-2474, right across the street from Frisch's on East Main Street.
Savings vary based on DriveWise and other safe driving discounts, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
There's nothing better than a fresh-made home-style meal, but not everyone loves the hassle of cooking. At Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken, home-style happens here with our famous 12-piece family meal at a great price. This famous family meal includes 12 mixed pieces of Lee's fresh, never-frozen chicken that is honey-dipped, hand-breaded, and cooked to perfection, plus 3 large sides and 6 fluffy biscuits. Get a home-style meal made easy today with Lee's 12-piece family meal at a great price. Only at Lee's, famous for chicken.
Listen to this radio station on the radio.com app. Discover and enjoy your favorite music, news, and talk radio from live stations across the country. Listen anywhere on all mobile and home devices with the radio.com app.
Hey, I'm Andy. If you don't know me, it's probably because I'm not famous. But I did start a men's grooming company called Harry's. The idea for Harry's came out of a frustrating experience I had buying razor blades. Brands were overpriced, over-designed, and out of touch. At Harry's, our approach is simple. Here's our secret. We make sharp, durable blades and sell them at honest prices for as low as $2 each. We care about quality so much that we do some crazy things, like buy a world-class German blade factory. Obsessing over every detail means we're confident in offering a 100% quality guarantee. Millions of guys have already made the switch to Harry's, so thank you if you're one of them. And if you're not, we hope you give us a try with this special offer. A Harry's starter set with a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, shave gel, and a travel cover. All for just $3 plus free shipping. Just go to harrys.com and enter 6677 at checkout. That's harrys.com, code 6677. Enjoy.
Have you been wronged by bad breakfast? Get the breakfast you deserve with Wendy's Breakfast 2 for $4 on select breakfast sandwiches, just as is served at participating Wendy's for limited time. Single item at regular price.
on Twitter. Make sure to give us a follow. Search 1410 Kinner for Justin Kinner on Twitter. That's 1410 KINNER. And ESPN Dayton for the station Twitter handle. We now send you back to Timothy's Bar and Grill on Brown Street for more of the Talking Out Loud pregame show, hosted by Sully.
This is the Talking Out Loud pregame show with Sully, and a special shout out to everybody watching us back at Timothy's Bar and Grill on Brown Street. In Dayton. I'm truly saddened that I cannot be with you today, but circumstances out of my control, as they say. It's not out of an abundance of caution, just circumstances out of my control have kept me from joining you today. So I am joining you from the Talking Out Loud studios in frigid Chicago, Illinois. But again, wherever you're listening to us today, we appreciate having you on for the show, full hour long, getting you ready for the 7 p.m. tip, Dayton versus George Mason. All right. I can't do it alone. I can't do an hour alone, and I don't like listening to myself to the point where I want to do it alone. I'm just not that vain. And so with that in mind, I tagged on the shoulder a special guest today to get us ready for the George Mason contest. He goes by the name of PD Buckets on Twitter, and he is from the By George Network, as well as the Hey 10 podcast, which covers all things A10. So he is joining me right now. PD, I feel like you are in a similar state of mind of me, where you're asking yourself, do I really have to watch this game tonight?
There's a game tonight?
Would you have known if I didn't bring you on the show? Okay.
Yeah, I got that DM and I was like, oh, I guess we're playing tonight. Yeah, no, I think similar feelings all around. It's like a little bit like this is the best the A10 could do for this Friday night slot.
Yeah, and you're a little bit more pragmatic than I am, but like, couldn't they have moved UMass Rhode Island up 24 hours and then put another game in on Saturday? Like that felt like the easiest option for me, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm guessing there's just a ton of behind the scenes stuff that goes on that we'll never be privy to. But yeah, I mean, it's the A10 needs to fill this Friday night slot, so we got ourselves a game.
Well, they can't let it go by the wayside. That's for sure, man.
For sure. Not after they lost it last week.
Exactly. So if you're listening in right now and don't know what we're talking about, the A10, the way that their TV contracts work is they have a slot during the week with CBS Sports. They have the weekend spots with NBC Sports. They have a contract with ESPN Plus for all the other games, and then their marquee spot is Friday night mostly, and then sometimes they get a Saturday night on ESPN2. So that is literally like the best option that the A10 has on television. Last week, they lost it because it was St. Louis against Richmond. Both programs decided that game wasn't going to happen. And then, this week, obviously, it was supposed to be Dayton versus Richmond, and Richmond's still on a pause. So, George Mason, weren't you guys supposed to have a game this weekend, or were you off? What was the deal there?
Oh, geez. What was Mason supposed to do? You're putting me on the spot. You were
off. Yeah, I know. I didn't prep you for this. I'm sorry.
We were supposed to play somebody who's off. I think we were supposed to play Davidson or somebody.
Oh, that's right. And Davidson's on a pause right now.
I'm probably wrong about that. But yeah, we were also like looking for a dance partner.
Yeah. So let's start there, Petey. Like, we are guys that are like deeply entrenched in the A10 conference. We have our opinions about the conference office. And if anybody at the conference office is listening, I still love you guys. Drew Dickerson, Commissioner Bernadette, we love you guys. Still looking for that interview this season. So we got to put that together, my annual interview with the commissioner. But I talked about on the podcast this week that the A10, they've already proved to us that the scheduling is fluid. It's going to be very fluid. Like, hey, let's put this game together on Friday night on Tuesday, right? So if the scheduling is this fluid, why aren't they doing more to make sure that their best teams have a loaded schedule down the stretch here? Like, I'm not crazy for bringing that up or thinking that the A10 should probably bend over backwards to make sure that St. Louis, Richmond, Bonaventure, VCU get more prime opportunities for games than, say, our two programs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this Friday night slot would have been a great opportunity to flex a game, perhaps, and put something, move something from Saturday up to Friday. But, I don't know. I think there's just like a lot of logistical challenges. One of the things I read was that the ESPN2 trucks, they were already in Dayton. So it's like the game's going to happen in Dayton, and there's only so much flexibility that they have at certain points. So I don't know. I think in general, the A10 does a pretty good job sort of sprinkling games throughout the week. So you get these primetime slots. Like we usually have a good slot on Tuesday night with just one island game in the A10. We've got this Friday night where we've had some, classic A10 games. And I listened to the pod, so I heard you guys talking about that.
Thanks, man. But I appreciate it. You didn't have to. All right. You're buttering me up here.
I am. But also, remember, I think last time I was on your podcast, it was not nearly this official. Look at you all grown up.
I know, man. I've come a long way. I really have.
Now, and I've come a long way too, because I'm opening for Ryan Mike Sell at this point.
You are.
So yeah, things are changing, man.
It's a tough act to follow. You're a tough act to follow.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I think in general the A10 does a really good job, and I know it's kind of a cop out answer, but I'll be honest, I haven't like looked super hard at this, but I would think that like UMass Rhode Island would seem like that's a rivalry game. I know Trey Mitchell was just announced out, but like that would have been a great game to flex to Friday. Bonaventure, St. Louis. Like I'm guessing that if they didn't flex either of those games to Friday night to take the ESPN2 slot, it's because there's like something that's just preventing that from happening.
Yeah, and funny enough that you bring that up, Duquesne actually had their game just canceled today. They were slated to play VCU on Sunday, and there was a COVID positive test in the Duquesne program, so that game on Sunday has been postponed. I keep telling people this, that and I'm piggybacking off of your point that the A10 has done a pretty good job of doing their best with a bad situation, right? But they allowed an extra week between the end of the season and the conference tournament, where typically you end the season on Saturday and then on Wednesday you're ready to go. Well, the season technically is ending on Wednesday, and then the tournament doesn't start until the following Wednesday. And most teams' schedule is very light in that last 2 weeks there, Dayton notwithstanding. So I think that the idea is from the A10 that they can squeeze in some of these more important games down the stretch. And I'm certainly hoping that that's what happens, because as we look at bracketology and the bubble watch, PD, I'm going to lay it out. I think that the A10 is destined to get 2 bids, and then we're going to find our third in the tournament. What say you on that, man?
Yeah, I think 2 bids is likeliest right now. I think that Bonaventure is probably the only team that's like comfortably in, and I really never thought I'd be saying that when they're scheduled, because they only got 2 out of conference games. So I was thinking like I had sort of like mentally ruled it out off the bat, but they look so good.
And they lost their first conference game, which was
right. Yeah, exactly. But no, I think they look great. I think everybody else is like on the outside looking in right now, but like just barely on the outside. Mm-hmm. And then Bonaventure can like they do not have a bench. They only go 5 deep. Really, it's like 5 guys play close to 40 minutes. And that doesn't set up well for them in the A10 tournament. So I think if they keep having a nice a good season, and if we have an A10 tournament, I think there's like a setup where you could have a surprise team that comes in and wins it, but it's really tough to see anybody right now outside of like Bonaventure, St. Louis, or VCU, or Richmond actually winning the A10 tournament. So I agree with you. I think 2 is probably the number that we're going to land on.
Yeah, because when I look at like who can play themselves in, St. Louis is on the thinnest of ice. Richmond is also the same way. They're on the thinnest of ice. Davidson would probably need to not lose a game until like the A10 final, which is a scenario where you kind of just throw it out like that. You know, to bank on that happening is it's kind of fruitless. But you know, just like you said, Dayton's at 81 in the KenPom rankings. I pulled them up right now, and Bonaventure's leading the conference at 49. So it's only a separation of 32 spots. In those 32 spots right there, you have St. Louis at 54, you have VCU at 57, you have Rhode Island at 68, Davidson at 64, and Rhode Island is good and out of the NCAA tournament picture. So it's kind of weird this year how like the middle of the pack is like, frankly, it's pretty mediocre, right?
Yeah, it really is. The and St. Louis coming back like crashing back to earth has really hurt us. And I don't think Bonaventure not getting out of conference games also hurts their ability to move up the KenPom rankings, because they didn't have a real chance to go get a couple good out of conference wins.
Well, what it does, PD, is it gives them way less opportunities to slip up down the stretch here.
For sure, margin for error is nil. And I would also say, I know you mentioned Davidson a couple points, like. You can take, like, I know their KenPom rating is high, but the committee's not looking at KenPom. They have no good wins. Like their best win is on the road at Rhode Island. Yeah. And then they've got their next best win is on the road at Duquesne. Yeah. So it's like, I don't see them playing their way in at all. I know the ratings are good, but they're like A10 tournament or bust, like just about everybody else.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. This is a good time to remind that if you are watching the show at Tim's, this is the Friday after class special, $2 wells from 5 to 8 p.m. and $5 pitchers all night. We thank our friends at Tim's for putting this on the big video board, and everybody that is watching back in Dayton. Joined by PD Buckets here, giving us the lowdown on George Mason. I figure we should probably get to the game at hand here. We talked about the A10 a little bit, and commercial breaks always sneak up on me because this is not a podcast, and I can't just go off for as long as I want. But we've already played once, PD, and since the last time we played, George Mason has kind of just existed playing basketball, right?
You could say that about most of the last 10 years for George Mason. So, we beat St. Joe's twice. So I think I don't even know what you say about that.
St. Joe's twice.
Tip of the cap or something. We're 3-4 since we last played. The 3 wins are St. Joe's twice and LaSalle, and the 4 losses are against any team that's remotely good that we've played.
When I talked to the guys at By George, the other guys at the By George network, they were critical of where the program's headed, but more so of Paulson, and they kind of thought, if I'm being judicious, that his time is kind of coming to an end in Fairfax. Being as diplomatic as you can, where do you stand on that? And let me preface for Dayton listeners, Dave Paulson is a good guy, and he's always very nice and very generous with his time with interviews. So the college basketball media tends to like him a lot because of that. But the numbers speak for themselves. We're 6 seasons in. I said it at the top of the show. He's never gone better than 20-14. I mean, like I said, being as diplomatic as you can, where do you land on this discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think it's about time. I think he's in his 6th year, like you said. I think he got a fair shake. We're seeing sort of the limitations of some things that manifested as warning signs, perhaps early on in his tenure. A big one being that we've had real trouble landing recruits that other teams in the A-10 are vying for. We've lost so many A-10 recruiting battles to like Rhode Island, UMass, St. Joe's. And it's just too much. Like at the end of the day, we're getting kids whose like their other best offers were, teams in, forgetting a conference, but like, teams like the MAC or something like that, just like these lower basketball conferences. And so like, there's a real lack of premium talent. I think, he's got his in-game deficiencies as well, and we could talk forever about that, but I don't see that as like the big issue. I think when you look at the overall roster, I think there's just a real inability to land the type of recruits that we actually need in order to be competitive at the top of the A-10. If you look at our best years, they were with Otis Livingston and Justin Kier, or Marquise Moore and Jalen Jenkins, who were brought in by Paul Hewitt, the previous coach, who was actually a fantastic recruiter. So I never want to call for a guy's job. Dave's been great to us, always generous with his time. But feels like things are starting to run their course.
Yeah, and for me as an objective viewer of the program, I kind of saw that writing on the wall in the 2019 season, and the reason is that they had brought most of their roster back in that season. Was it now 2 seasons ago? And I said I picked them in the top 4 that year. I was like, I think this is the year they take the step. They have all the talent, the experience. Otis was a senior. He was one of the better guards we've seen in the A-10 over the last few years here. And then, by the time we got to, I'm looking at end of January, they were 13-8, and it was like, the season was over again. So I think that was definitely kind of the beginning of the end for Dave Paulson, but I must digress. As far as the game tonight, last time we played George Mason, it was kind of a forgettable game. Like the Flyers led from start to finish. Mason kind of made things interesting for a second, and then we just pulled away again and ended up being a 9-point Flyers win. How does George Mason come away with the win today?
Forgettable. It was on SVP, man.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Was that a bad beat that night?
That was one of the worst beats, because I think Dave got 2 techs at the end to get himself a run.
That's right. And then Dayton covered on that. Yep.
Closing spread was like 6.5 or something. We ended up losing by 9.
Yep.
How does George Mason come away with the win tonight? I think a lot of it depends on how Dayton looks. I think we're not, I don't, I think if Dayton plays their A game, it's a easy 10-point victory probably. I don't have to tell you that this Dayton team kind of never know what you're getting night in and night out. So I think if we see kind of like this sleepy Dayton team where Crutcher looks a little bit unassertive, or a little bit passive, a little bit deferential to some of the younger guys who aren't ready, I think there's a lot of stuff on Dayton's end that needs to happen before it's, Mason's actually going to be in the game. Because you're right, Mason's just like, it's just messy right now. And even, I know we ended up taking a lead in the second half of the last game, but even then we were down 18 in the first half. Mm-hmm. When a good team comes out like locked in against Mason, it's not going to be, I don't love our chances.
I'm wrapping up with PD Buckets right now. And to your point, PD, here's the thing about Dayton. It's not that you don't know what you're going to get. You know exactly what you're going to get night in and night out from Dayton. It's whether it's going to work or not. Dayton's going to live and die by the 3. They're going to play slow. They're going to turn the ball over a ton, and they're going to have scoring droughts. What the difference is how long are the scoring droughts? Are we hitting the threes? And are we making like a an average amount of turnovers versus our usual like 15 to 20. Okay, so it's not like that I don't know what we're going to get. It's that I know what we're going to get. It's just how good or bad is that version of what comes out, right? Last thing, do you have? I know you're a Ken Palm guy. Do you happen to know the one area of Ken Palm where George Mason is in the bottom 10 in the country?
Free throw percentage, right?
Free throw percentage, my man.
Yeah.
George Mason is shooting under 60% for the year from the line. What is going on there? What's going on?
It's pretty incredible. We like Javon Green's a pretty good guard who takes most of our free throws. But Javon and Jordan Miller, like our best free throw shooters, are at like 76, 78%. And then we run our offense through the post a little bit, which I could rant and whine about for a long time. But we run a lot of offense through the post, which doesn't work. But those guys get fouled, so it's like our bigs on the free throw line all the time, and AJ Wilson and Josh Oduro both shooting under 50% on a very large sample size of free throws. So it's like it's a mess, man. It's ugly.
Well, unfortunately for you, my friend, you are playing the team that is number 1 in the country in the arbitrary stat of free throw defense. That's right, Flyer fans. Opponents against the Dayton Flyers are shooting 61% for the entire year. That ranks your Dayton Flyers numero uno in the country. Oh yeah, you got to be number 1 at something, baby. Wrapping up with PD Buckets here. PD, great having you on. We love chatting hoops, as what me and you do best. But you have to give us a prediction before I let you go today.
Oh, geez. Let's say Dayton 75, Mason 67.
All right. I said that both point totals were going over tonight. You confirmed it. I said the over was going over. You confirmed that as well. You heard it here. Dayton wins, scores 75 points. You heard it from the man himself, PD Buckets. We'll be right back. Ryan Mikesell's joining us on the other side of the break to bring it all the way home to tip-off, 7 p.m. Dayton against George Mason. This is the Talking Out Loud pregame show brought to you by Lee's Chicken and powered by Timothy's Bar and Grill. And you can only find it right here on 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton.
Domino's Pizza, Subs, and Wings. Order online now or call direct for Sunday pickup or delivery. 5000. Email adam@sportsinvestments.com or visit them on Montgomery Road, right off I-275. Just 40 minutes from WING.
Staples has everything you need to start the year right, like home office furniture, the latest tech and organizational supplies, and all at amazing prices. Get a fresh start this year with big savings from Staples.
Tie ball game with the shot clock winding down now. Jones takes the ball to point off the high screen and roll. He puts up the shot at the buzzer, and it's
Timothy's Bar and Grill on Brown Street. Dayton Flyers basketball fans can't make it to the arena this season, but want to experience a safe electric college game day atmosphere? Timothy's Bar and Grill is the spot to support the Flyers all season long. Follow Timothy's Bar and Grill on Facebook and Twitter for select game day specials. Go Flyers!
We now send you back to Timothy's Bar and Grill on Brown Street for more of the Talking Out Loud pregame show, hosted by Sully.
Welcome back. Welcome back. It is great to have you closing out the hour. This is the Talking Out Loud pregame show here on ESPN Radio and on iHeartRadio and on StreamYard and on YouTube and even live at Timothy's Bar and Grill. Got a special guest joining me for the last hour of the show. I think it's been a couple weeks since I've seen your mug, but it's great to have on Ryan Mikesell to talk some hoops. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Hey, it's good. It's good to talk hoops with Sully again, man. Let's do it.
This is what we do, man. This is what we do. All right, win, lose.
I love it. This is what I live for. College basketball, baby.
I'm still gonna be here. People give me a lot of heat because I'm mad when we lose, but they know that I'm gonna come back around and start talking hoops again, like when the sun rises. Yeah.
I love going after games, win or lose. I love just seeing Dayton Twitter. I'm invested in Dayton basketball Twitter right now. I love it. It's the good and the bad.
It's like that Community gif when Donald Glover walks into the room with the pizza and like the whole room's on fire. Like that's what Dayton Twitter is like almost every time after we lose a game. So here I was trying to figure out where we're going to start tonight, and the perspective that I did want from you today was so the team took just a poopy loss on Tuesday. It was just a bad loss. You were on teams that lost to Duquesne, but the perspective that I was looking for was, what is AG like after a loss? Is he the kind of coach to just let you be in your thoughts, or does he kind of get after you after a loss?
I mean, it depends on kind of how the game went. If I had to guess, I think Coach Grant probably went with the kind of like the silent treatment, like kind of because you knew throughout the whole game that the fans were, or not the fans, the players were just like, you know, they were down on themselves because they got off to such a start. You could see none of them did well except for Dalen, typically. So I'm assuming Coach Grant kind of understood that, walked into the locker room and probably gave a few words, but most of the teaching and all that stuff comes that next day in film session. That's when he'll really get after you if he needs to. He gets a little more animated then once he gets to see the film and kind of break down the game.
Yeah, because like Archie always struck me as like angry dad, like I'm gonna whoop your ass when you get home type of dad. Whereas like AG kind of strikes me as the I'm just disappointed in you type of dad, you know?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. That's a good comparison. He's like really like that I can remember that I was a part of. The last time where he really got after us was actually in Duquesne last season. Where I think we were up like 20 points on them, and they came back and we only ended up beating by like 4. And that was the most like animated I saw him the entire year. Like he really got after us, and he was like basically, screaming and yelling and doing all that. But for the most part, he's pretty much, pretty calm, and he's, kind of collects his thoughts before he presents it to the team.
I was upset with you that night because I watched that game from London and there was a midnight start time local, and I was like ready to shut off the game and go to bed, and it was like 2 a.m, and then they started coming back, and I'm like, I just want to go to bed, and then they started coming back some more, and I was like, come on guys, I gotta go to bed.
We just wanted to make sure the fans didn't turn off the TV. We wanted them to watch the full 40 minutes. We didn't want you guys to turn it off after 25 minutes, 28 minutes, whatever it was.
Little did you know that it was 2:30 in London, and I had to be at work at 7. So it was a rough morning for me that day, man. It really was. All right. So talking about the game coming up, or I guess, we can back up a little bit. Where do you think that the struggles have come from in this team? We talked about, like, last time I had you on, that the lineup is inexperienced outside of the three seniors there, right? No longer four seniors because Rodney's gone down, and even Jordy really hasn't had that much time. So now that that excuse kind of goes out the window when you get into February, that. So where do you think the struggles have existed on this team, or what's the hump that they're trying to get over right now to get some good wins on the resume?
Yeah, I think throughout the whole season, I just feel like it's been so hard to develop a true chemistry amongst the guys, and that's starts from the whole COVID situation, not being able to get the freshmen on campus until the fall. And then even during the fall, I know a lot of their workouts and practices weren't what they usually were. So people don't understand, like, the preseason is a huge deal for college basketball teams. And during that time, that's when you can kind of play that ugly basketball where you're figuring out, what works, what doesn't work, and figure out those lineups. And throughout the whole season, you could kind of tell Coach Grant doesn't really know exactly which lineup is going to work each night. Some nights it's this guy, some nights it's that guy. Obviously, you have your three seniors who have kind of been through it, but those young guys, they haven't been through it. They haven't, had those ups and downs and gone through, a true college basketball season where they played meaningful minutes. So, I would just say just the lack of chemistry out there. You see at times it can be so hard for them to run their offense and get an easy shot. Whereas obviously, my last season, we were, either getting a wide open three or a dunk or a layup or whatever it was. We kind of made it look easy. But it's, college basketball is not so easy. There's a lot of good teams out there. There's a lot of good teams out there. And, having that chemistry is a huge deal. And I think that's just one of the things that they've been fighting the whole year.
Yeah, and on that point, so we just got breaking news across my desk on Twitter here. Moose Sissoko is going to be out tonight with an injury. No shakeups to the starting lineup. We're still going to see Weaver, Crutcher, Watson, and then the Moose and Jordy down low. Just for the listeners' sake out there. You brought up a good point, man, just like the continuity of the roster. And I actually got a good question before the show that I wanted to ask you. And the question came from one of my friends on Twitter, and he said, what do you think the difference would have been with this team if Chase stuck around and, was able to finish out the season? Because I got to thinking about that, and I don't know if it would have mattered against LaSalle because Moose Amsel came in and scored 23 anyway. But I certainly think that it would have avoided that loss to Fordham and maybe Duquesne the other night. So I was interested to get your perspective on, do you think that would have changed the team's trajectory this season?
Yeah, I think it would have. Chase is one of those X factor guys who, at the beginning of the season, he was playing really well. He was getting 15 points, 10 rebounds almost every game. I love the freshman. I love Mustafa. Is that how we're pronouncing it? Mustafa.
I just call him Moose. I'm lazy
Moose.
with that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm lazy.
Yeah. I really like Moose as a player. I think he's going to be really good, but you can kind of tell he's a freshman out there still. He kind of hits those slumps during games, where the game's really hard for him. So having a guy like Chase would have been huge. He's really a mismatch at the 4 and the 5. He can put the ball on the floor. He could shoot. He could do all that. So, I think it would have made a big difference, but unfortunately, he's not with the team anymore.
Yeah, for sure. You brought up how last year you made buckets look easy, and last night I was watching the Iowa-Ohio State game, and there's not a whole lot of similarities to Luka Garza's game versus Obi, and the debate raged on last year about like the player of the year and whatnot. I mean, Obi won it fair and square. There's nobody listening from Iowa on here. But the one thing that when I watch them, the one similarity that their offense does have is the attention that Garza brings to the defense. And like when you watch Iowa, if he gets the ball, he collapses and he kicks the ball out immediately. And it's reminded me so much of last year. And I think that's the one thing that people, maybe like casual fans, don't understand about us, like to dissect the game, is that when you don't have somebody down low to draw that attention, lanes don't open up outside. And I mean, how many buckets did you score last year because Obi's going to kick it out to you and you're going to shoot or drive right back into the hoop? I mean, that just does something for your offense, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly, that was why we were so successful last year, especially playing with Obi in the post. He was such a willing passer. we knew that he wasn't a black hole. If we're going to throw it down in there, he's going to get doubled, and he's going to be able to find you either on a cut, or we're going to get an open three on a swing or whatever it is. So not having that post presence is huge. Having Jalen with the ball and having the guards have to make so many of the plays, it's difficult because teams are able to load up and do that. And when you're kind of playing out of the post, it's harder to kind of manipulate your, the help side defense. It's hard. It's just more difficult to play off the ball, I think. So,
yeah. And you saw it against VCU, man. I mean, they doubled Jalen, just took him out of the game. Like, and if a team can do that defensively, like Dayton can pretty much lose to anybody this year, because he's just got to stir the drink, for better or for worse, man. He's got to score 20 for us,
Yeah. And it's tough when you're asking somebody to do that on a, every game basis, but it's looking like for this team to be successful, Jalen's going to have to kind of take majority of the shots and kind of lead the team that way.
No doubt. Wrapping up with Ryan Mikesell right here on the Talking Out Loud pregame show. Thanks for joining us wherever you are, radio, YouTube, StreamYard, or if you're watching us at Tim's. People are actually watching us at Tim's right now, Ryan. Wrap your head around that, okay? I told you before we went on that people are going to be watching us at Tim's, so here you are. So the last question I did have for you was, now that the at-large hopes are just, they're dashed, there's just not enough games to make up, in that resume. I know that you played on teams where it was the case in the season, where in February, you're not playing for an at-large, you're kind of playing to get stronger, go into the A10 tournament. So with that in mind, I mean, we got a group of competitors. They're going to go out and try to win every night, but like, what is the mentality in that last month when you know that you're kind of playing for something different that season?
Yeah. No, it's tough. It's tough knowing that at-large bid is pretty much gone. My redshirt junior year was a prime example of that. We had a pretty good resume leading up to the Rhode Island game at home. We ended up losing that one in overtime, and that pretty much
just tip it in, bro.
Yeah, that was a tough one to swallow. But yeah, I mean, after that, we had a choice. As those older guys, they need to kind of man up and take responsibility of the group and basically lead the way. You can either, completely basically just go through the motions and make this, whatever, the last month or so, not so fun, or you can kind of rally the troops and get ready, and hopefully you can make a run into the A10 tournament and build up that momentum. I don't think people realize how huge momentum is going into like an A10 tournament. Like, it's such a huge thing. And if you can get that going, anything can happen. You can win the A10 tournament, and next thing you know, you're in the NCAA tournament. So, that's one thing I kind of regret. I didn't think we did a good job as an older player, redshirt junior, when we lost to Rhode Island. I thought we could have did a better job, holding guys accountable and kind of building that momentum into the A10 tournament, where we then lost to St. Louis. They made it to the tournament. So, hopefully these guys understand that, and they can, build that momentum and continue to develop and improve and help out the young guys. And, you never know, you can make a run.
Yeah, I know we talked about it last time we got together, but now that you're firmly entrenched in Dayton Twitter, and you're very much a fan of the program now, and no longer a player, it is what it is, man. Have you found yourself growing more and more frustrated, or at least appreciating how frustrated I get because I can't do anything about it?
Yeah, no, it's definitely frustrating because I know the potential of these guys. I know the potential of the team. I was just with them, the past 4 or 5 years, and I know the guys, and they work so hard, and to see them go out there and, some of the mistakes that are, on there that are kind of preventable. It's like, as a senior last year, I'm still kind of in that mode where I feel like I go talk to them, go help them.
Put on the jersey, man. Give us 10 and 8.
Exactly. So, that's the frustrating part about it, but that's just the way it is. And, I can't really do much about it, but I'm fully on the Dayton Twitter. A diehard Dayton fan for the rest of my life. So I'm going to be involved in all the Twitter talks, all the ups or the good and the bad. I'm here for it.
Yeah, that's the burden that we have as fans, man. And I think that was where I was kind of misunderstood this year, because like, you know, I say a lot like online, like I have just a lot of things to say, and I guess that's like how we landed here, is because I'm constantly talking about Dayton hoops. But you know, I was really upset after like the LaSalle Fordham losses, and then when we beat St. Louis, I found myself being even more upset. And
no, I said the same exact thing.
I was so mad, and people, like even my friends, were like, well, "Did you want us to lose?" And I said, "No, I didn't want us to lose. I'm just so angry because I felt so validated that my expectations for this team should have been as high as they were, right?" And I was like kind of preaching to people like how unacceptable it was to go and give us that effort at Fordham, and then I just felt so vindicated because they came back and beat St. Louis, and it was like, well, this is the team that they could have been. And I kind of felt myself being really frustrated just by that aspect alone, you know?
No, I said the same exact thing after the game ended. You know, I feel like Dayton as a whole has always been fighting that as a program. Like all the teams that I've been with, you know, I've been fortunate enough to win 3 A-10 championships, but I've also, you know, my redshirt junior year is the same thing. I keep going back to that. That was a prime example where we had basically the same team we did when we went 29-2. But we let games slip away for whatever reason. We played down to our competition, and I think that's just something, you know, good teams have to get over the hump. You have to be consistent year in and year out, and hopefully, you know, Coach Grant has a plan to kind of get over that hump.
We are wrapping up, and Ryan, before I let you go, and before we finish up and get it over to tip off with about 2 minutes to go here, I just got a word from the producer here that Joe Burrow is at UD Arena taking in the game tonight. I don't know how the hell Joe Burrow got tickets, because I can't even get tickets to go to the game. So
come on now.
I don't know. All right, what's Joe Burrow done for the Dayton Flyers? Okay, like
that's Ibby's best friend, man. He's
that's right. They went to high school together. Right?
Yeah, he's a good dude. I talked to him a little bit on like FaceTime and stuff, but
cool.
Yeah, him and Ibby, they grew up together. You know, back in childhood, so they were always on FaceTime together and whatnot. That's pretty cool. I'm glad he could go. He could come check out a game at UD Arena. It sucks that like 13,000 fans are going to be there, but
yeah, you and I learned that the hard way. Remember against SMU, we're like this sucks.
yeah, I'm 0-2 at the arena when I went to games, so I think I should stay away as a fan.
Well,
you know, it's not good so far.
Well, maybe we'll have Joe Burrow at Tim's today. Maybe he goes for an after game beer. All right, man. Before I let you go, tip offs here in a couple of minutes. What's the prediction for tonight? Dayton Flyers have the spread. It's 5.5. What do you got?
5.5. I think the Flyers. You know, I think offensively they're gonna I think they're gonna shoot the ball well. I think law averages will work in their favor. I think it's gonna be 76-64.
All right. I said that both point totals were going to go over. PD Bucket said both point totals were going to over, and so did you. So take the Flyers and the over. They're going to do it today. That wraps it up, man. Let's get everybody over to tip off. This has been the Talking Out Loud pregame show. Thanks for coming on, man. It's always great to chat.
Yeah, appreciate it. Let's go Flyers, man. Stay loud and wear our red.
Yeah, you know the 2 rules now. What are they?
Yeah, I know it. Locked in.
Wear red, be loud. We'll see you guys later. Thanks for listening in, guys. Take it easy.